Wait until I like the other ones.
Well, this takes a match. Here, this one. I don't think they'll burn down too good, do you?
Some of those candles burn pretty fast. Keep an eye on
They don't burn that fast.
Thank you.
Yep.
I thought this was still pretty. What I thought.
it.
Yes. All right. Good morning. Welcome to First Universalist of New Madison on this balmy New Year's Day. Who would expect Christmas Day was like 0 degrees, and this day today is like 45, almost 50. It's supposed to get up into the 60s. So if you don't believe in global warming, just look out the window. Hope you all had a good Christmas and a good holiday in general. We had Christmas Eve service and Christmas Day service here. Tara was able to come. That's my wife. She's the pastor at New Carlisle Church of the Brethren. Because of the terrible travel conditions, they canceled church over there Christmas Eve and Christmas Day.
Oh, both days.
But because that doesn't bother us, we came here and had a Christmas Eve and a Christmas Day. I saw there were like 25 people saw Christmas Eve, which means the people from New Carlisle watched her here instead of there, which was enjoyable. But you can see, if you want to watch on Facebook or YouTube, you can see the 2 services, and you can see why they have such a good attendance there. She sang, played the guitar, gave a little sermon. It felt like real church, except for nobody in the pews. All right, do we have any announcements? We're going to have a movie, I think, not next week, but the week after at the cottage on Wayne Lakes. We're going to do the Lincoln. I'm going to present the Lincoln movie. We talked about this on and we never seemed to get it started, so we're just going to do it. I'll provide pizza. Anybody can bring anything that they like, but there will be pizza and soda pop, and there might be an alcoholic beverage or 2 for those who prefer that. Everybody is welcome, and that will be maybe an hour after church, not next Sunday, but the Sunday after. Next Sunday is Crystal will be here. She has a presentation she would like to make, and we always invite anybody, if you have anything of interest that you want me to talk about, please let me know, and if you want to make a presentation yourself, feel free to do that. She's even providing the music, so she's supposed to give me the music or give you the music before like Wednesday or so we know what we're doing.
Yes.
I'm assuming it's out of the hymnal. And for Christmas I got a book light, so anybody who has trouble reading up here at the podium will have a light. Make that easier. Any other announcements?
Would
Yes.
you let us know what your address is and what streets you're going to Wayne Lakes?
Yes.
Please.
The simple way is when you go into Wayne Lakes on the main drive,
Yeah.
the main entrance on 121, there are little blue signs that say Clubhouse.
Yes.
Go right down to the clubhouse. There's 2 big stone pillars in front of the clubhouse.
Yes.
Stop there. Don't go into the clubhouse because that's a dead end. Stop at the stone pillars. There's a T road to the right. That's Middle Drive. I'm the 3rd cottage on the left. Big brick house, little tiny cottage, and then a brick stone, natural stone cottage. But I'll give you the address, and I'll print it out on a piece of paper or something.
Thank you.
Did you say we'll be meeting after church?
After church, like about an hour. Well, actually, you can come anytime, but that'll give me time to go in and get the pizzas in and stuff. So, but you can show up anytime. There's plenty of parking. You can park across the street. There's a 2-car garage there with parking. There's a parking area in front of the little storage building, like the little garden shed. And then there's the long driveway. Let's see. I had something else. Oh, the address is kind of hard to find because there's Middle Lane in Wayne Lakes and Middle Drive. Middle Drive is the first T road you come to, and Middle Lane is 100 feet past it. But the post office doesn't recognize Middle Lane. They say my address is Middle Drive, but it's not, because if you go to 3796 Middle Drive, you're on the other side of the lake. So people do get lost. That's why I tell them, go to the clubhouse, turn right, third cottage on the left. That's a simple way to do it.
Thank you.
Okay, our welcome is 419. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Attributed to Kalida, and a good way to start New Year's. Our prelude is Christmas Rhapsody. too late for Christmas music. It's never too late for Christmas music or Christmas ties. Santa and the reindeer in a hot tub, taking the day off after Christmas. I got a message from Shay last week in New York. She appreciates seeing, I did a rotation on 360, and she appreciates seeing the church, so I'm going to do that now. So if there's anybody that doesn't want to be on Facebook, hold your hand up, and I'll jump over you. And also, we want to thank Roberta for bringing in her centerpiece from Christmas, the little candle and the evergreens. So this is for Shay. I hope she's doing all right. She said she was in the part of New York that lost electricity, so she was under there was no heat in her house, but she said she had a place to go, so I'm hoping that's been resolved. I've not heard anything from her. Okay, our slide thing is going to be New Year's, as is obvious, and the obvious one is this one, everybody celebrating the New Year with fireworks. I did not hear anything by our house. Usually people are shooting guns off and everything else. I'm not sure, maybe they got discouraged by the Ohio State loss and just gave up, I don't know. But I want you to look at this. I'll talk about this at the end. I just want you to look at this face and see this little girl and put it in your mind for later in the service. All right, on to happier times. Chalice lighting. Chalice lighting for the new year by Lisa Doge. For the new year, just days old, beginning today, always beginning, we light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonishing thanksgiving and irrepressible praise. For beginnings that emerge out of endings and appear amidst continuity and become visible in hindsight, we light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonished thanksgiving and irrepressible praise for all the times and all the ways that we have begun anew together. We light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope, in astonishing thanksgiving and irrepressible praise. Our opening hymn is number 8. spirit, another very emblematic song for Unitarian Universalist. I am empty, time flies from me, what is time? Dreams eternal, fears infernal haunt my heart. What to give you, what to call you, oh my God. All right, our affirmation. We bid you welcome this first Sunday of the new year. Like Janus, we gather with part of us looking forward and part of us looking backward. We gather on the edge of the new year, saddened by our losses, cherishing our joys, aware of our failures, and mindful of days gone by. We gather on this cusp of this new year, eager to begin anew, hopeful for what lies ahead, promising to make changes, anticipating tomorrows and tomorrows. We invite you to join our celebration of life, knowing that life includes good and bad, endings and beginnings. We bid you welcome. All right, our children's story is The Night Before New Year's. This is from a new author, Cozy Time Tales.
Hey friends, welcome to Cozy Time Tales. Today we're going to be reading The Night Before New Year's by Natasha Wang. The Night Before New Year's. 'Twas the last day of December, what we call New Year's Eve. A whole year had flown by. It was hard to believe. We were pretty excited. Our puppy was too. We cheered, out with the old and in with the new. Oh, please, I begged. Can we stay up till midnight? For this one special evening, my parents told us, all right. So we drove to the store to buy party supplies. Hats, horns and poppers, and sparkly bow ties. At home, we put up all the streamers and balloons, silver glitters and gold stars to twinkle up our rooms. A banner was hung by the ceiling with care, in hopes that baby New Year soon would be there. Gathered for dinner, a grand late-night feast, all our family favorites. I ate 3 cupcakes at least. With a clink of our glasses, we all gave a toast, making New Year's resolutions. My dad had the most, but I couldn't come up with one single vow. That's okay, said Mom. You don't have to right now. After dinner was done, we played checkers and charades, then broke out the cards for a long game of spades. We shared fond memories. Oh, there were dozens. Holidays, camping trips, and new baby cousins. Our eyelids were droopy, so we ducked out for fresh air. Then came in to watch the crowd lining Times Square. 1 more hour, said Dad, till the new year is here. Put on your hats, said Mom. Let's practice our cheer. Counting down from 10, without a single mistake, we tooted horns and popped poppers. I was now wide awake. My brother chased our puppy all through the house, and then Mom and Dad noticed it was as quiet as a mouse. There was no sound of barking, nor little boy chatter, so we sprang from the couch to see what was the matter. When what to our wondering eyes should appear but 2 party poopers. Make that 3 now, oh dear. While our puppy curled up on my father's lap, my brother and I went upstairs for a 5-minute nap. We both soon were nestled all snug in our bed, while visions of fireworks danced in our head. The next thing I knew, it was sunny and bright. Rats! We missed ringing in the New Year last night. But that's when I came up with my resolution, I believe. I absolutely will stay up for next New Year's Eve. The end.
The end. I hope your New Year's Eve was as enjoyable. We always watched Miracle on 34th Street. Watch all the Christmas movies and you see families in turmoil, families that end up happy. Unfortunately, real life is not always that so successful. So hopefully you had a happy family reunion, a happy family time. If not, this is the new year and there's always next year. All right, joys and concerns. Yes.
I'd like some thoughts and good feelings for my parents. They're not doing well. My father's been in and out of the hospital recently. My siblings and I have been rotating our time with them because at this point, I don't think they can be left alone. So Gary and Alice Hewitt are their names, and I'm getting ready to leave to go tomorrow to spend about a month there.
Gary and Alice?
Yeah.
Gary and Alice Hewitt in Northern Ohio?
Yeah, they're in Asheville.
Yeah, so travel mercies as you travel back and forth. When my mom was terminally ill, I used to, every time I got off from nursing, whatever day it was, I would drive 2.5 hours up to Northern Indiana. That is a time for reflection. You think about what your parents mean to you and what time has passed and what the future holds. So our hearts and minds are with you on those journeys. And when you're there, it's a difficult time for everybody. Not only for them, for the family, yes. So hearts and minds there. We cannot forget Ukraine. We have our poinsettias, but if you notice, we still have our sunflowers here. Things have not improved. We keep hearing stories about what is going on in Russia, that they are beginning maybe finally to realize that this is a hopeless cause, and yet the people that run that country don't admit to hopeless causes and will hopefully not, but possibly resort to the end of all ends, the use of atomic weapons to try and force their will on other people. Right now, all they're doing is destroying the entire electric infrastructure, which also pumps the water to these cities. So the people in the Ukraine, even with the coats and hats and gloves that we've sent them, are basically using the demolished houses to burn for heat and to cook their food. Another charity you can think about is, I think it's called the United Kitchen. There's a gentleman, he's a famous chef, World Kitchen, who has provided food in disaster areas, the hurricane in the US, Haiti, but he also is in the Ukraine. If you're looking for a worthy cause to contribute money to, that is something that they've been doing continuously right along.
Tim, let's also light a candle for Jeanette Burns, our faithful member who left us a few months back.
Yes. Jeanette Burns, her smiling face was here for many years, longer than most of us could even count. And just a wonderful, open, caring person. We will miss her. Yes.
I was recently home in Michigan, and while I was up there, I had breakfast with an old friend of mine from school. Her name's not important because it wouldn't mean anything to the folks here, but I did not realize that her sister had passed away the Monday after Thanksgiving. And given that Lisa's parents are also deceased, I was completely unaware that, this was her first holiday season with no family. She was an only child. She and her sister were the only two siblings, and with her parents deceased. And I think that's a big change to find yourself in, that you just don't have it. And both of her parents were only children, so there aren't any aunts and uncles left either. So
Those transition times are extremely difficult. Yes?
And let's also light a candle for Margaret Schreiber as she continues to improve health-wise. And also, I understand her husband, Patrick, will light a candle for him, and he is much improved health-wise.
Yes, Margaret and Patrick were here like the Sunday before Christmas. Patrick turned out to be positive for the virus, which I keep telling people, wear your mask, and I'm sure Margaret does. She was fanatical about wiping, cleaning her hands and wearing a mask and everything else. And I'm sure she imposed that on Patrick, but it could still get by you. So Patrick was positive. We sent her a card. She was very appreciative to get the get well card from us. She even sent me an email thanking us for that and said it meant a lot to her, that's nice. And I told her in the card that just because Patrick came and tried to make people sick, please come back. We're not going to bar him from the door. But then 2 or 3 days later, she tested positive. We got another email from her. She's been through the whole course of preventative medicine, or the medicine that they give you to reduce the symptoms. It did reduce her symptoms, but it didn't clear the virus from her system. And now that she's run the course of that medicine, she's feeling sick again. So our hearts and minds are with her for her speedy recovery. She was completely vaccinated and a pretty healthy person, so I think everybody's real hopeful there won't be any lasting effects. But I'm sure you've heard of the long haul COVID, where things can go on for years afterwards, so fingers crossed. Anything else? New Carlisle, they still have like 18 people there that are positive, and that was one of the reasons they also canceled services. But as I said before, I was really thankful to have Tara here. It was really an enjoyable Christmas Eve service and Christmas Day. That's available on Facebook, and I didn't get it on YouTube yet, but I will if anybody wants to see that. All right. For those joys and concerns, those thoughts and prayers, those desires and fears, which we cannot mention, like what's happened to all my batteries, we send out those supporting feelings, those supporting prayers, those supporting thoughts for those of you who have need. All right, our message, first things first, and we're always grateful to have Pastor Derek back for a really good presentation.
Thank you again for having me give spoken ministry here on New Year's Day, and thank you as well to the El Dorado Church. Normally I say they released me for duty, but on this case, we have no church scheduled down in El Dorado. I'd hope that a couple of folks who are still in town would be coming up here, but they're not here. So, they might be sleeping off whatever they were doing last night. 2 readings to introduce today's message. The first is a prayer for the beginning of a new day from the Baha'i faith. Praise be unto you, O my God, that we have awakened this day. Awaken us with the splendor of wisdom and light, and send down upon us what we will need for this day. Rid us of attachment to things which hinder the light of life and keep us safe through guidance. Defend us from the shadows that whisper evil into our ears. You are our truth. You are eternity. You are help in times of peril and the foundation of all reality. And a reading from Lesson 52 of the Tao Te Ching. In the beginning was the way, and all things issue from it, and all things return to it. To find the origin, retrace back the manifestations. When you recognize the children and find their mother, you will be free of sorrow. So happy New Year. Welcome to year 2023 of the Common Era is what they call it now. That's sort of the nomenclature you could get a broad group of religious groups to agree to, because non-Christians did not see the point of the AD notation, so it became the Common Era. On Christmas nights about a week ago, my husband and I were talking. The holiday season had been good to us, and yet we found ourselves having a little difficulty feeling all that celebratory. You know, we had really good food. Jason is an incredibly good cook. We had a nice bottle of wine. We have the comfort of what I would say is probably the best house we've ever owned. And yeah, we even grumbled about our first world problems. The dishwasher stopped working. And that's the worst thing that ever happens to you. Give thanks. The dishwasher stopped working. But as we moved onwards towards New Year's Day, there's been kind of a shadow in our hearts and minds. It's a shadow cast by the knowledge that this has not been the most wonderful time of the year for many people. In Afghanistan recently, millions of women were informed that they would no longer have any access to education beyond the 6th grade. No access to education beyond the 6th grade. In Buffalo, New York, this was in my news feed, a poorly paid nursing home worker in her early 20s froze to death trying to drive home in a blizzard after her mandatory shift. I also have a good friend who phoned me and told me that his adult son this past month and a half has made a lot of very bad choices and will likely be evicted and homeless in a matter of days. In Houston, Texas, a transgender woman was lured onto a date with a man who sought her out and who then beat her and called her a demon. He asked her out on the dating app. And in Ukraine, as we mentioned, Jason and I have been thinking about the Orthodox Christians who want to celebrate Christmas but cannot really do it amidst waves of Russian drone attacks, power outages, and fierce cold. So what does it mean for us to start a new year when so many people in the world are in so much pain? It certainly mutes your sense of hope and celebration. New Year's Day, I have to admit, is kind of an arbitrary but necessary thing. It's arbitrary in the sense, so the planet Earth moves around the sun, and it traces out a very precise course to measure out a year, and yet there is no specific point on that orbit that says, attention, this is day one of the new year. So arbitrary, but necessary to have a New Year's Day. If we're to measure the passage of time and contemplate the mysteries of past, present, and future, necessary. Most cultures have a way of measuring out the calendar to designate a year. For some, the year is measured in terms of the passage around the sun. For other cultures, the year is measured in terms of the moon moving around the earth. But each one has its New Year's Day. And the forward gaze so many of us instinctively make on New Year's Day, a look into the future that is yet to come. And what kind of a year will it be? Is it going to be a good one? Or a difficult one? Well, maybe a hopeful one. And yet we begin this year with a definite pain floating about in the air. The pain of religious fanaticism, the pain of poverty and natural disaster, the pain of friends or family, loved ones who have bad judgment and are now reaping the consequences. The pain of prejudice and violence, and the pain of warfare, just to speak of a few things. And my husband and I were wondering, given all of this, like where do you begin? It's a new beginning today. Where do we begin? In the beginning was the way, all things issue from it, and all things return to it. You and I, and every person who has ever existed, now or will exist in the future, we are bound together on a journey. And for many of us, New Year's Day is one of those roadside rest areas on the journey through life and time. And I know that for me, if I spend too much time fixated on what I will do, I can get paralyzed with that desire to get it all figured out. All of it figured out. But I don't know anybody, no matter how together they seem in life, who has it all figured out. But there are a few things I've figured out as we begin New Year's. I can only begin this new year from where I am. And you really can only begin your new year from where you are. And there's no utility trying to figure out what things would look like if you what-if'd it to death. What if I had done such and such last year? Wouldn't I be? No. It doesn't do any good. That what if. Begin where you are. And maybe, as you're beginning this year, there's a calling in your hearts to reach out to somebody, somewhere. Maybe in Houston or Dayton or Ukraine, or maybe someone right here in Dark County. Maybe somebody who's here in Dark County but not in this room in Dark County. Reach out, because none of us journeys alone. If you're hearing my voice, you are not alone. There are people around you in the pews. If you are online, there may be people in your home or a neighbor next door. And I'd even say the people right here in this church that you can reach out to online. I've been told that sometimes when I'm preaching, there's 15 of you out there. Reach out. The journey through life and time is a better one when taken with others. I can't promise that it will be free of sorrow or worry, but I can promise that when traveling with others, there will definitely be times when the joys taste a little bit sweeter and the burdens are eased. So how am I going to start New Year's Day? This new year, 2023. How will I begin this segment on the spiritual journey we are all on? Well, I'm not much for the practice of New Year's resolutions and the whole cycle of hope at their potential and guilt when I do not meet specific health or financial goals. But it's still worth it to be mindful of where I am in this moment of time, to be mindful of who is here with me, even right now, each of you. A good gift right here. And so I'm going to try to be very aware of my fellow travelers. I'm going to try to be mindful of what the Quakers term that of God in every person, so that I can keep on the watch for the sacred realities of humankind alive in people all around me. I'm going to keep very aware of the need to link arms with others and to build spiritual community for one another. I want to be aware of my own joys and, yes, my own sorrows, and of where we have the ability to celebrate those joys and where we have the ability to ease the burdens that we face. This New Year's Day, I conclude the official portion of my message with one of the meditation poems of Anthony Perino, who was a Unitarian Universalist minister who served for a very long time at the church in Lansing, Michigan. How artfully the falling sand of the hourglass navigates the corners of life, clothing barren branches with a pale, granular softness, carpeting the world and all upon it with sudden quiet. The seamless, chronological blanket of time orders a connection that strangely warms and can heal our hearts. At the El Dorado Church, most Sundays, we affirm that the quest for truth is our sacrament. Good churchy sounding language. And if I'm ever asked to explain to people what are the important things that happen here, as well as at the El Dorado Church, I say that a huge part of what we do, we are a community of shared inquiry and shared exploration, asking big questions about the meaning of human life and big religious questions. And that's why we take time after the sermon for a little bit of dialogue. And I want you to know that I almost always walk away from this building with wisdom in my heart that I did not have when I entered those doors. And that is a big thing to help carry you through life. Wisdom that you did not have before. So what wisdom, thoughts, questions are in your hearts this morning?
We're looking for shared wisdom, considering the burden of the environmental problems we face in the new year, the political problems we face in the new year, the social problems we face in the new year, and maybe the less than happy position we find ourselves in. Do you have any suggestions or any clues as to how we approach that in a positive attitude? You know, what sustains you as you go forward?
I think every time we find those pieces of wisdom that we can share with each other, other people, including those who are beyond these walls or even beyond the camera and screen, be mindful, cherish that in your heart, celebrate that. I think of the story from amidst all like the disaster that took place in Buffalo, New York. There is this weird and heartwarming story about a guy who broke into a public school to make shelter for a bunch of people. They left a note behind and cleaned the place up on the way out. Now, yeah, it's not admirable that they broke in, but you kind of understand that they did. But for me, like the beauty of that story was that group of people had the decency to clean up after themselves before they left. They were really aware of like how fraught this situation was, but they didn't want to be bad guests. And that, like this guy was like getting people off, like who were like stuck in their cars, like into that building so they wouldn't freeze. Nobody likes a building broken into, but they had the kindness to clean up after themselves. Another thing to just, if you have not read the book, there's now like a little animated film of it too. I strongly recommend that you read or watch The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. It is a beautiful, beautiful story. It's a children's book, but it's one of those things that's not a children's book because it's so beautiful and profound. At one point, one of the animals asks the boy, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And the boy responds, "I want to be kind." To see that message in our popular culture, I think, is a thing to celebrate. What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be kind. Because there's a lot of other voices that say, don't aspire to that. There's other things you can aspire to. To have that voice, I want to be kind. Other questions, thoughts for this first day of the new year?
I can't help but to share a story about Buffalo. I'm turning in my head right now. You were talking about someone who had a great need for shelter and to share that shelter with other people. And to justify, quote, breaking in and then carrying through with that with cleanup and justifying the cleanup and leaving things as is and appreciation. The motivation for that, and I don't say this to be negative, contrast that motivation with on January 6th, a few years back, people felt the need to be there. And they felt such a need to be there. And obviously there was a lot of hysteria involved and extreme political motivation. But to break into a place, destroy property because they were motivated to settle a score, a wrong, a misdeed, okay, a stolen election, and then failing to clean that up, and then have people to defend those individuals, politically motivated, a lot of it, defense. Those two cases, in terms of, I guess where I'm going with all this is motivation in the right direction and motivation in the wrong direction. We have that mindfulness to allow external factors to motivate us.
That's a fascinating juxtaposition because if you're just to like look at things mechanically, just to be very mechanical about it, you're like, well, both are break-ins, and yet context and motives matter. The guy who broke into the school was trying to save the lives of people trapped in their cars. The people who broke into the Capitol building were probably intending to murder at least one or two people. I mean, that's the motives. The difference in motives are huge. And that's why when we really think about justice, and not just like being mechanically legalistic, context and motives matter when we think about matters of justice. It's a little bit, it goes back to the question that comes up in ethics classes. How do you think about the person who steals a loaf of bread? Could he have paid for the bread, but he stole it anyhow? Or was he in terrible poverty and trying to feed his child? Context and motives matter. Thank you. That was that juxtaposition is something to hold in your mind.
Okay.
Thank you, friends.
Thank you. And there was one other story from Buffalo, if you saw that on the news. The family who had a van stop outside their house with 14 Koreans that were stuck and lost. They invited them into their house and they spent 2 days, Christmas, they had Christmas dinner, they slept all over the place. But this little family of husband and wife invited these 14 Koreans in, some of whom spoke English. They were on their way to Niagara Falls. Imagine coming to America and landing at Dulles Airport, and the first place you want to go is Niagara Falls. That was pretty interesting.
In December.
In December, yes.
Not the vacation you planned on.
Not the vacation you planned on, exactly. But talk about cross-cultural ties and the sense that humanity is the same all over the world. That was also refreshing. And the many other stories of the people who walked out of their house to get groceries and froze to death on the street. Just amazing. I think I'm going to throw this in. I didn't know where to put this, and I didn't know exactly what to do with it. Maybe we should call it Hopeful New Year instead of saying Happy New Year. Derek's approach kind of led me down this path before I even know what he was going to do. I think we're on this kind of on the same place with the problems that the world is presenting us. This is a 13-year-old Polish girl whose name I could never pronounce. It's all consonants, all jumbled together. But the picture was taken in Auschwitz in 1945 by a Polish capo. Remember a couple of weeks ago I told you we talked about the concentration camp. The capos were the Polish people who were prisoners but were then employed by the camp to do camp business, and they managed to survive throughout the concentration camp experience. This capo took this picture of this girl minutes before a nurse, and I use that term loosely, took her into a back room, and you can see, if you can see the picture, she has a split lip. The nurse, when she came into the building, hit her in the face and split her lip. And then this, while she was preparing her equipment, this photographer took her picture. Then she was taken into a back room, and between her third and fourth rib, they used an 8-inch needle to inject potassium into her heart and kill her.
Oh.
We need to think, and we need to pledge, and we need to say this is not going to happen again. All right.
There's an interesting juxtaposition that you brought that photo up, and it deals with the first hymn we had today. Mother Spirit, Father Spirit was composed by the Reverend Norbert Čapek, who was the minister at the First Unitarian Church of Prague, Czechoslovakia, when the Nazis invaded. He was arrested and executed for being a subversive.
In the eyes of the Nazis.
In the eyes of the Nazi occupation. But even so, in the midst of all that, the Unitarian Service Committee in Prague was smuggling Jews out. So I think, yes, never again. And the fact that people lived and struggled to keep hope alive for others.
And how close did we come January 6th to seeing this repeated again? This is not some fanciful thing that people are told to scare you like the boogeyman. This is reality that we are facing. So, a hopeful new year, let's put it that way. And our offering is my favorite things. This is the first Sunday of the month, so we have a fish plate here and the regular offering plate. Feel free to put something in or take something out if you need it.
Good to see you.
takes a show tune to raise your spirits. Thank you, Lloyd. And all right, our closing hymn is number 26. All right, our extinguishing the chalice, A New Year for the Beloved Community by Deborah Hafner. Happy New Year. Happy New Year for our beloved community. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Lashana Tova, to those of you from Jewish backgrounds as you celebrate Rosh Hashanah. We gather together at the start of this new year as people of many ages, as people of many sexual orientations and gender identities, as people of many races and ethnicities, as people of many theologies and religious backgrounds, woven together in our love for this community, with our hopes and dreams and prayers for the year before us, with our hearts and minds and spirits ready to be touched by the year before us, with our hands and time and talents ready to be offered in the year before us. We gather together at the start of this new year with gratitude and love for those who have come before us, for those who stand here with us. May it be a good year. May it be a sweet year. We have donuts, day old as usual, and we have leftover Christmas cookies and leftover Christmas candy and coffee if you would like to stay afterwards. Our postlude is Old Lang Syne. All right, and you're not going to get through a service without horses. So here is a quiet moment of contemplation, something that I wish you all could hear. Have a happy new year, and blessed horses for all of you. That ends our service in New Madison.
That was beautiful, Tim.
Nice job. Thanks, Tim. Nice job.
Somebody just needs to-
I wish I could.
Yeah. Well,